Hey, shalom, shalom, saints, shalom. Hope y'all having a blessed Shabbat today. I'm having a blessed Shabbat today. Just got through reading and doing some study, so I wanted to continue where we left off in advanced books of the Apocrypha in the Ethiopic Bible. Okay. First book of Maccabees, chapter 8. Continue reading about how the Jews during the reign of the first Antichrist, King Antiochus IV, and the Hellenized Jews who sided with him and went to the Greeks and the Romans who was trying to take over Israel and Jerusalem, how they fought back against the Edomite Gentiles of the region. And this is around during the time of when the Hellenized Greek Gentiles went into Africa, into Egypt during the Potomac period, you know, taking over as Pharaoh of Egypt during the time. So after they went over and occupied, you know, Africa, and started taking over Egypt and Syria and the Arab states during the Greek Empire days after Alexander the Great. You know, the Jews wasn't having that. We fought back. We wasn't no punk. We weren't just gonna let nobody just come in and take our land like that. And then some of the Jews, they went and sided with the Greeks and had their own people killed. You know, because they were some suckers and they ended up getting killed, you know, in the end. So we're gonna continue reading now. I think where we left off was in chapter 7, the end of chapter 7, when let's see, end of chapter 7, when the Jews seized the spoils and cut off Nicanor's head, who Antiochus and them sent, the son of Antiochus and them sent down there to go fight against the Jews. So now where we left off. So if y'all got the book, if you got this book, I'm on page 102, page 102. So if you don't got this particular book of the Apocrypha, it's in the first book of Maccabees and chapter 8. So chapter 8 is where we start. And Judas wasn't no punk in this book. He was like, hey, these dudes was fighting against the Greeks with elephants, and they had got some of them Arabs and the Indians with they elephants and whatnot. And man, they went to war like some Spartacus stuff. Man, they were going in. They were going in. They were going in on them. But let's continue reading, man. So where we left off was during the rise of the Roman King Philip the Fifth. Philip the Fifth, who actually the fourth or the fifth, one or two. I think it's the fourth. Nah, it had to have been the fifth. It had to have been the fifth, because King Philip IV was the father of Alexander the Great. So King Philip V, he began the reign, and he ended up killing Demetrius and Antiochus. Antiochus during the time. And let's read on. Verse 1, chapter 8, verse 1. It says, now Judas heard of the fame of the Romans. So now we're dealing with the Romans. We're still dealing with the Greeks, but the Romans was trying to take over the Greeks during the time as well. And they was more powerful and mighty than the Greek Gentiles at the time. And they ran their government a lot different, almost similar to how we run ours today. We about to read that because this is crazy. This is crazy. It says, now Judas heard the fame of the Romans, that they were very strong and well disposed toward all who made alliance with them. It says that they pledged friendship to those who came to them. So this Roman Empire, who was rising up during the time after the death of King Antiochus IV of Ephesus, the first Antichrist, Rome started defeating their men and taking over the strongholds that they had and the countries and started to run over them. So they were still battling the remnant of the Greeks during this time. It says, verse 2, it says, and they were very strong. It says, and men told him of their wars and of the brave deeds which they were doing among the Gauls, how they had defeated them and forced them to pay tribute. So they, forced them to pay tribute to the Romans, And they was doing that all the way, even when Yehoshua was around, paying tribute unto Caesar through the Roman Empire, Roman army. And it says, and it says, and when they had done, it says, and what they had done in the land of Spain to get control over the silver and gold mines there, and how they had gained control of the whole region by their planning and patience, even though the place was far distant from them. That sounds like us. They went over planning and having patience and taking over countries that's far from them. Sound like America today. It says they also subdued the kings who came against them from the ends of the earth until they crushed them and inflicted great disaster upon them. And the rest paid them tribute every year. Paid them money every year. It says Philip the fifth and Perseus, king of the Macedonians, because Perseus was Philip's son, his bastard son. He had two sons. Philip had two sons, Perseus and Demetrius. Demetrius at the time. Demetrius would kill Antiochus and what's his name was taken over. But anyway, let's get back to it. So King Philip IV, the king of Macedonia, had two sons. One name was Perseus, and one name was Demetrius. It says, and Philip and King Perseus, Perseus, king of the Macedonians, and the others who rose up against them, they crushed in battle and conquered. They also defeated Antiochus the Great, king of Asia, who went to fight against them with 120 elephants. And we was talking about them elephants, how they went to fight against them with them elephants, the same elephants that they got from India that they used to fight against the tribe of Judah. And Judah was giving them the business with Judas and them. Mattathias and Judas and Jason. They were giving them the business. So it says, and with cavalry and chariots and a very large army, it says he was crushed by them. It says he took them alive and decreed that he and those who should reign after him should pay a heavy tribute and give hostages and surrender some of their best provinces. So they were supposed to give them hostages and surrender some of their best land. It says the country of India and Media and Lydia, which was Medes and Persia, the country of India, Medes and Persia. India is where they got the drivers of the elephants. Medes and Persia, as in Daniel chapter 11, against the ram and the goat. Okay, this is around during the same time he was having that dream. It says, these they took from him and gave to Eumenes the king. It says the Greeks planned to come and destroy them, but this became known to them, to the Romans at the time. It says, and they sent a general against the Greeks and attacked them, and many of them were wounded and fell. And the Romans took captives their wives and children, and they plundered them, conquered the land, and tore down their strongholds, and enslaved them to this day. So the Romans took over them Greeks and put them in slavery too during the time. It says the remaining kingdoms and islands, as many as ever exposed them, they destroyed and enslaved. And not just the Greeks, but everybody that the Greeks took, they also enslaved, which was us, because they took a lot of the children of Israel and enslaved us along with them. It says, but with their friends and those who rely on them, they have kept friendship. It says, and they have subdued kings far and near, and as many as have heard of their fame have feared them. And those whom they wish to help to make kings, they make kings. And those who they wish to dispose, which they dispose, and they have, it says, and those whom they wish, they dispose. And they have been greatly exalted. So whoever they wanted gone, they were gone. It says, yet for all this, not one of them has put on a crown or worn purple as a mark of pride. So he's saying the Romans during this time, that was part of the Roman King Philip and Perseus of Macedonia. They ain't wear purple and crowns, to put on their pride at the time, which is kind of like we see today. They don't run around here in Babylon with that on, but they still part of the Roman Empire. Let's read on. Only the ones that still wear those purple and crowns is the one in Vatican City, who y'all call the popes and pontiffs. They run around in purple and crowns on. It says, but they have built for themselves a Senate chamber. They built them a Senate chamber like we got today, the House, the Senate, the Judiciary. It says, and every day 320 senators constantly deliberate concerning the people to govern them well. Ain't that what they do over here in the House and the Senate? You can see where they get this playbook from. America got they playbook from the Romans for the House and the Senate, just like the Romans did. It says, and they trust one man every year to rule over them. It says one man every year to rule over them. Just like we pick presidents today, this is how the Romans was controlling the people. They made a House, they made a Senate. They had 320 senators, and they went and deliberated concerning the people how to govern them. And it says, verse 16, it says, and they trust one man each year to rule over them and to control all their land. It says, and they all heed the one man, and there is no envy or jealousy among them. So we kind of do the same thing over here. Put up above us one man to rule the country, rule over all the land, the military. So verse 17 says, so Judas chose Eurypylus Eupolemus, that's it, Eupolemus, the son of John, son of Achus, and Jason, the son of Eleazar, and sent them to Rome to establish friendship and alliance. Verse 18, it says, and to free themselves from the yoke, for they saw that the kingdom of the Greeks, which was completely enslaving Israel. The kingdom of the Greeks was completely enslaving Israel during the time. It says, and they went to Rome a very long journey. So the Israelites traveled to Rome, and they entered the Senate chamber and spoke as follows. So they went before the Senate in Rome and tried to plead for the enslavement of their people during this time. Well, that sun coming out beaming, boy. Slide over here. So it says Judas, verse 20, it says Judas, who is also called Maccabees, and his brother and the people of the Jews has sent us to you to establish alliance and peace with you, that we may be enrolled as your ally and friends. So the Jews went to go seek alliance with the Romans like they do today. We have this treaty between United States and Israel. You know, if they go to war, we're supposed to have their back, and if we go to war, they're supposed to have our back. They following the same playbook. Same playbook being played. So it says, that we may enroll as your allies and friends. It says the proposal pleased them. It says, and this is a copy of the letter which they wrote in reply on bronze tablets and sent to Jerusalem to remain with them there as a memorial of peace and alliance. Verse 23, it says, may all go well with the Romans and with the nation of the Jews at sea and on land forever, and may sword and enemy be far from them. May sword and enemy be far from them. If war comes first to Rome or to any of their allies and all their dominion, the nation of the Jews shall act as their allies, wholeheartedly, as the occasion may indicate to them. And to the enemy who makes war, they shall not give or supply grain, arms, money, or ships, as Rome has decided. And they shall keep their obligations without receiving any return. In the same way, if war comes to the nation of the Jews, the Romans shall willingly act as their allies, as the occasion may indicate to them. And to the enemy, allies shall be given no grain, arms, money, or ships, as Rome has decided. And they shall keep these obligations and do so without deceit. Sounds utterly familiar. Sounds utterly familiar. So we have the same ally, and we have the same ally in the same treaty in America as the Romans made with the Jews in the book of Maccabees, then that would pretty much signify that we still under Roman rule. we are Babylon. We are the daughter of Babylon, of the Roman Fourth Empire. And it says, thus on these terms the Romans shall make a treaty with the Jewish people. And after these terms are in effect, both parties shall determine to add or delete anything. And they shall do do so at their discretion. And any addition or deletion that they make shall be valid. Shall be valid. It says, and concerning the wrongs which King Demetrius is doing to them, which King Demetrius was the other son of the Greek, was the Greek son of Demetrius, the son of Seleucus, set forth from Rome. So that was who he was. He was the Greek during the time. So Demetrius was doing to him. It says, we have written to him as follows. It says, why have you made your yoke heavy upon your friends and allies, the Jews? It says, and now they appeal again for our help against you. We will defend their rights and fight you on sea and on land. All right, get ready to storm again out here. So King Demetrius was the son of Philip V of Macedonia, Perseus' brother. And this was during the time they made the treaty with Rome, with the Jews. Chapter 9, 1 Maccabees chapter 9. It says, when Demetrius heard that Nicanor and his army had fallen in battle, he sent Maccabees and Alchemists into the land of Judah. Now remember, Alchemists was one of the Hellenized Jews who had who strove for priesthood. They say that Maccabees placed Alchemists in charge of the country and left him with a force to help him. And then Maccabees went back to the king, and Alchemists strove for high priesthood. So he was one of the Hellenized Jews that sold the children of Judah out. So here it says, he sent Maccabees and Alchemists into the land of Judah, into the land of Judah a second time, and with them the right wing of the army. So it says, and they went by the road which leads to Gilgal and encamped against Mesaloth and Arbela. And they took it and killed many people. And in the first month of the 152nd year, they encamped against Jerusalem. So you had one of the Israelites fighting against us. It says, and they marched off and went to Berea with 20,000 foot soldiers and 2,000 cavalry. It says, now Judas was encamping in Elasa, and with him 3,000 picked men. It says, and when they saw the huge number of enemy forces, they were greatly frightened, and many slipped away from the camp, until no more than 800 of them were left. Now when Judah saw that his army had slipped away, the battle was imminent. And he was crushed in spirit, for he had no time to assemble them. And he became faint, and he said to those who were left, let us rise and go up against our enemies, and we may be able to fight them. But they tried, it said that they tried to dissuade him, saying, we are not able. Let us rather save our own lives now, and let us come back with our brethren to fight them, because we are too few. So people's like, hey man, we need to wait till we regather our forces, because we ain't got enough people to fight Alchemists and his cavalry. Verse 10, it says, but Judah said, far be it from us to do such a thing as to flee from them. If our time has come, let us die bravely for our brethren, and leave no cause to question our honor. So that right there tell you, us Israelites, we weren't no punk that back in the day. We weren't just sitting back letting people just slaughter us. They got up and said, hey, let's die with honor. If we're gonna die, let us die trying. Let us die fighting with honor. But they had to do it with the Most High. Couldn't do it by themselves. It says, then the army of Maccabees marched out from the camp and took its stand for the encounter. The cavalry was divided into two companies, and the slingers and the archers went ahead of the army, as did all the chief warriors. It says Maccabees was on the right wing, flanked by two companies. The phalanx advanced to the sound of the trumpets, And the men with Judas also blew their trumpets. It says the earth was shaken by the noise of the armies, and the battle raged from morning to evening. Now Judah saw that Maccabees and the strength of his army were on the right. And then all the stout-hearted men went with him, and they crushed the right wing, and he pursued them as far as Mount Azotus. It says, and when those on the left wing saw that the right wing was crushed, they turned and followed close behind Judas and his men. It says the battle became desperate, and many on both sides were wounded and fell. So this was a great battle, man. This one gonna turn out good. On both sides men fell, and Judas also fell, and the rest fled. So Judas got killed during this battle with Alchemist, who was also an Israelite who turned Hellenized and tried to kill his own people. Man. It says, then Jonathan and Simon took Judas their brother and buried him in the tomb of their fathers at Modin, and wept for him. And all Israel made great lamentation for him. And they mourned many days and said, how is the mighty fallen, the Savior of Israel? It says, and now the rest of the acts of Judas and his wars and the brave deeds that he did and his greatness have not been recorded, for they were very many. And after the death of Judas, the lawless emerged in all parts of Israel, and the doers of injustice appeared. So the enemy took over the land again. And in those days a very great famine occurred, and the country deserted with them to the enemy. And Maccabees chose the ungodly to put them in charge of the country. Who was the ungodly? The Hellenized Jews, who went and chose sides with the Greeks. And chose sides with the Greeks after the Greek Antichrist King Antiochus. So he put them in charge, the Hellenized Jews. Verse 26, and says, and they sought and searched for the friends of Judas, and brought them to Maccabees, and he took vengeance on them and made sport of them. Because remember, during the time, they was putting up Colosseums. This is where we get this whole Spartacus stuff from. They was putting up Colosseums in Jerusalem, so that the slaves that they had enslaved can fight each other to the death. So they could fight each other to the death. Because in 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 14, it says, so they built a gymnasium in Jerusalem according to the Gentile custom. And what was the Gentile custom? They built these Colosseums so that slaves can fight against each other to the death. And here you saying in the first book of Maccabees, chapter 9, verse 26, it says he took vengeance on the friends of Judas and made sport of them. And made sport, put them in a Colosseum to fight against each other to death. Ain't that something, man? Verse 27 says, thus there was great distress in Israel, such as has not been since the time the prophets ceased to appear among them. And then it says, and then all the friends of Judas assembled and said to Jonathan, since the death of your brother Judas, there has been no one like him to go against our enemies and Maccabees, and to deal with those of our nation who hate us. It says, so now we have chosen you today to take his place as our ruler and leader to fight our battle. And Jonathan at that time accepted the leadership and took the place of Judas his brother. So now we've got brother Jonathan. He said, man, shoot, y'all done killed my brother. I gotta stand up for Judah and go fight against this enemy. You're trying to enslave us and put us in Colosseums to fight each other to the death. Man. So Verse 32, it says, when Maccabees learned of this, he tried to kill him. He tried to kill Jonathan. It says, but Jonathan and Simon, his brother, and all that were with him heard of it, and they fled into the wilderness of Tekoa and camped by the water of the pool of Aspar, which is a region, I think, northeast of Israel. It said Maccabees found this out on the Sabbath day. So Maccabees found this out on the Sabbath day, and he, with all his army, crossed the Jordan River. Crossed the Jordan. It says, and Jonathan set his brother as leader of the multitude and begged the Nabateans, who the Nabateans are the Jordanians today, in the land of Petra, the Jordanians. So Jonathan and the tribe of Judah went and begged the Moabites and the Jordanians, the Moabites and the Amorites, the Jordanians, and they ain't help them. This is what they did to them. And this is why they getting, you know, if you read in the scriptures in the Old Testament how the Lord is going to punish Moab. Talking about he's going to punish the children of Moab, the children of Lot, who in the time of their trouble, they ain't helped their brother. They ain't help them out. They ain't help the children of Israel out. Check this out. He says, so Jonathan sent his brother as leader of the multitude and begged the Nabateans, the Jordanians, who were his friends, for permission to store with them the great amount of baggage which they had. But the sons of Jambri and Medeba, which are the Moabites today, okay, came out and seized John. So they came out and killed John and all that he had and departed with it. So they killed John and took all his stuff, all that he had, and rolled out. That's why the Lord is angry with the Moabites, the Jordanians. That's why he said in the last days, when we see the abomination, desolation standing in the holy place, and he told those in Judea, flee to the mountains, flee to Petra, and they're gonna dwell and hide in with them for a little while. And then once they come up out of there, he gonna deal with the Jordanians. He gonna turn them into shame. Yeah. He says, and after these things, it was reported to Jonathan and Simon, his brother, the sons of Jambri are celebrating a great wedding, the Moabites, and they are conducting the bride, and the daughter of one of the great nobles of Canaan, from Nadabath, yeah, so Nadabath, with a large escort. It says, and they remembered the blood of John, their brother, and went up and hid under cover of the mountain. It says, and they raised their eyes and looked and saw a tumultuous procession with much baggage. And the bridegroom came out with his friends and his brothers to meet them with tambourines and musicians and many weapons. Then they rushed upon them from the ambush and began killing them. So Judah was no punk. You know that Judah said, hey, Jonathan, they killed Jonathan's brother John. He said, let us go over and just deal with these Moabites, these Jordanians. We went down there to the land, to the valley of Petra, and we went and slaughtered them. They took all our stuff and killed my brother. Yeah, we went down there and slaughtered them. It says, many were wounded and fell. It says, and the rest fled to the mountains, and they took all their goods. It says, thus the wedding was turned into mourning, and the voice of their musicians into a funeral dirge. The voice of their musicians turned into a second line, a funeral dirge. It says, and when they had fully avenged the blood of their brother, they returned to the marshes of the Jordan. Returned to the marshes of the Jordan River. It says, when Maccabees heard this, he came with a large force on the Sabbath day to the banks of the Jordan. And Jonathan said to those with him, let us rise up now and fight for our lives. For today things are not as they were before. That's why they scared of us. Because they know how these Israelites did these other nations back in the day. They weren't no punk. They wasn't scared. They were ready to fight to death before it come to be made a slave and a fool of, when the Most High was with them. But because of their disobedience, hey, the Most High allowed a lot of us to fall by the wayside, man. You know what I'm saying? We can't do nothing. We ain't got strength to do nothing without the Most High Elohim. But that day is coming where He gonna fight against our enemies for us to the likes the world have never seen before. That's why we need to pray against our enemies. Pray against our enemies, those who wish to persecute us and kill us. Pray against them. Pray that they repent and receive salvation. But hey, if they don't want to repent and receive salvation, hey, we got to pray the Most High. He take them on about the way. They sure didn't play with them back in the day. The Most High ain't play with them back in the day. He says, verse 45, it says, for look, the battle is in front of us and behind us, and the water of Jordan is on this side and on that, with marsh and thicket. There's no place to turn. So they were like, man, we got our back against the wall. We need the Most High to help us, and we got to fight. We ain't got no choice but to fight. But Maccabees was of the Greeks. So after they just got through fighting them Jordanians, the Greeks followed them and tried to make war with them. In verse 46, it says, cry out now to heaven, that you may be delivered from the hands of our enemies. So they cried, they prayed to heaven that we may be delivered from the hands of our enemies, that the Most High will do battle against them. It says, so the battle began, and Jonathan stretched out his hand to strike Maccabees. But he eluded him and went to the rear. So he ran like a little punk and went to the rear of the company. So he stretched out his hand. I'm about to get him. The Maccabees see that. Hey, let me get the back. Let me go hide out the back of the rear of the company. It says that Jonathan and the men with him leaped into the Jordan. They jumped into the Jordan River and swam across to the other side. And the enemy did not cross the Jordan to attack them. They ran like some old punks. They cried out to the Most High. Hey, they seen the Most High was with them. They're like, oh, hey, these Negroes, they're crazy. Let's just jump in this river. Let's get to the other side. It says that about 1,000 of Maccabees men fell that day. 1,000 of them fell. You hear me? That's why he said 1,000 may fall by the wayside. By your wayside, but you still be left standing. Man, you better go to the Most High about your enemies. I'm trying to tell you, you can't do nothing. How can a man kill up 1,000 people in battle without the Most High? Verse 50, it says, Maccabees then returned to Jerusalem and built strong cities in Judea. So he got scared. He went back into Jerusalem and he took over the land, the Greeks, and built strong cities in Judea and the fortress of Jericho, the fortresses in Jericho, and Emmaus and Beth Horon and Bethel and Timnah and Pharathon and Tiphon with high walls and gates and bars. It says that he placed garrisons in them to harass Israel. So he placed little sheriffs in there to harass the Israelites that were still in there. It says he also fortified the city of Bethzor and Gazara and the citadel, and in them he put troops and stores of food. So they still had all these citadels and walls still up from King Antiochus, who sent his chiefs in there to make war against the Israelites. It says, and he took the sons of the leading men of the land as hostages, and put them under guard in the citadel at Jerusalem. And in 153rd year, in the 2nd month, Alchemus gave orders to tear down the wall of the inner court of the sanctuary. So this old wannabe high priest of the Israelites who turned against his brothers, he said here he gave orders to tear down the wall of the inner court of the sanctuary. He wanted that wall tore down. But what the Most High do to him? He said he tore down the work of the prophets. He tore down the work of the prophets, but he only began to tear it down. He said he only began to tear it down. And the Most High did this to him. He said, for at that time, Alchemus was stricken, and his work was hindered. His mouth was stopped, and he was paralyzed. So as soon as he began to tear down that wall that the prophets built for the Most High, hey, Most High stricken him and paralyzed him. He couldn't even speak. Stricken him. And he said, it said so that he could no longer say a word or give commands concerning his house. Whose house? Yah's house. It says, and Alchemus died at that time in great agony. Woo, man. So he killed him with let's see, what kind of paralyzing? That's kind of like what's that that stuff that I'm gonna say MDA or Lou Gehrig, so something like that. He died in agony, pain. He couldn't even talk. He was paralyzed, so he died quickly. It says, and when Bacchus saw that, and when Bacchus saw that Alchemus was dead, he returned to the king, and the land of Judah had rest for 2 years. After he seen how the Most High did Alchemus, he said, "Oh, shoot, man, leave these people alone. Let's give them some rest. I'm gonna go back to the king. Let's go back to the king, King Philip." Let's let it go on back to the king, see what's going on. It'll get real over here. I mean, not King Philip, but Demetrius. King Demetrius. All right, so the land of Judah had rest for 2 years, so it was peace in Judah for 2 years after that. And the Most High stricken that old high priest Hellenized Jew who killed all his brethren, trying to suck up to the Greeks, to the Greek Edomite Gentiles. He got what he got coming to him pretty much. Verse 58 says, and then all the lawless plotted and said, see, Jonathan and his men are living in quiet and in confidence. So now let us bring Bacchus back, and he will capture them all in one night. So they ain't get enough. They ain't get enough. So they want to go back in there and try to catch them off guard once again. It says, and they went and consulted with him. And he started to come with a large force and secretly sent letters to all his allies in Judea. So he still had some minions in Judea and in the land of Judah, telling them to seize Jonathan and his men. But they were unable to do it because their plan became known. So Jonathan also had some spies. He said, hey, I ain't gonna pull this okadoke on me again. And Jonathan's men seized about 50 of the men of the country who were leaders in this treachery and killed them. So hey, he caught 50 of them. He had Jonathan had his spies in the city of Judah, in Judea. And hey, he said, hey, I caught me 50 of them, let's kill them. They trying to plot treachery on me again. Man. It says, verse 62. It says, then Jonathan with his men and Simon withdrew to Bethbasi in the wilderness, and he rebuilt the parts of it that had been demolished, and they fortified it. It says, and when Bacchus learned of this, he assembled all his forces and sent orders to the men of Judea, and they came and encamped against Bethbasi, and he fought against it for many days and made machines of war. It says, then he came and encamped against Bethbasi and fought it. Oh, I already read that. Verse 65. It says, but Jonathan left Simon his brother in the city while he went out into the country. And he went with only a few men. It says, he struck down Odomara and his brothers and the sons of Phasiron in their tents. So he got them while they were sleeping, pretty much. It says, then he began to attack and went into battle with his forces. And Simon and his men sailed out from the city and set fire to the machines of war. And what was the machines of war? Remember, we was reading earlier, the machines of war was them old catapults and them old, them little things they had with them little, to shoot them little pieces of sharp wood and all that. And they had catapults launching them back on rocks and stuff with fire. So they went out and set fires to the machines of war because they was made out of wood. Okay. And it says, and they fought with Bacchus, and he was crushed by them. So the Israelites fought against Bacchus, and they were crushed by them. And they distressed him greatly, for his plan and his expedition had been in vain. So they ain't get enough, so they went over there trying to mess with them a second time, and they got dealt with. It says, so he was greatly enraged at the lawless men who had concealed him to come into the country. So Jonathan was enraged at the lawless men who concealed him to come into the country, and he killed many of them. Then he decided to depart to his own land. And when Jonathan learned of this, he sent ambassadors to him to make peace with him and to obtain release of the captives. It says, he agreed and did as he said, and he swore to Jonathan that he would not try to harm him as long as he lived. And he restored to him the captives whom he had formerly taken from the land of Judah. And he turned and departed into his own land, and came no more into their territory. It says, thus the sword ceased from Israel. And Jonathan dwelt in Michmash, and Jonathan began to judge the people, and he destroyed the ungodly out of Israel. And that's going to be it for today. Because next we're going to get in chapter 10. We're going to talk about Alexander Ephraim, the son of Antiochus, the son of the Antichrist, went back into Egypt to try to take over to Potomac during the Potomac period, where the Greeks was trying to rule as pharaohs in Egypt at the time. So we're gonna get into that. But all right, y'all have a blessed Shabbat. Yeah, blessed Shabbat. And keep reading on, man. I enjoy reading and putting these out there, because hey, if I don't do it, who else gonna do it? I know y'all ain't gonna read it for yourself. Hopefully y'all read it for yourself, but I know half of y'all ain't gonna read it. Y'all scared of the truth. Y'all scared to read the word. So I enjoy putting them out there, especially for people who ain't got the book, who want to hear the story and get some knowledge of what happened back during the day, during the second, for the destruction of the second temple. So, and I just hope you have a blessed day today, and stay in the Word. Continue to, pray for the salvation of your enemies, and continue to pray against those who wish you harm. Because the Most High, when He come back, He coming to repay vengeance on our enemies. So don't think He coming to play nice, but He ain't. As we said, it's gonna be a great and terrible day. And great for His children and terrible for our enemies. Shalom.